Hey everyone, so now that we've basically established our types of structure, what I'd like to do is get a little bit more into how we view order flow, sort of meshing together timeframes to be able to understand how we interpret specific data and be able to stay on the right side of the market when applicable. So when you look over from left to right, you can see obviously we're in a higher time frame demand zone over here. Now, typically what you'd like to see in a higher time frame demand zone is that usually you can get involved on some sort of a 15-minute order flow realignment, which would happen right across here. Now, I don't have everything labeled on this chart in terms of OFS and order flow realignment, so I will just be kind of verbalizing all of these different things so that you can make note of them and kind of come back and reference. So the idea is that if we want to trade in the pro trend direction, typically we'd like to see a higher time frame mitigation or a tap in, and then from there we'd like to see an order flow shift. Ideally, we want to see a substantial amount of liquidity taken from the market. So typically what we'll get is the initial sort of tap in, push down, and then get the change of character / order flow realignment that happens right here. So the first entry that you could look to get involved in would be on the demand that creates that level that takes out the internal structure point. Sorry, the 15-minute internal structure point, which is right here. Furthermore, what I typically like to see to make sure that trend is reestablishing in the direction that I'm liking to trade, especially when I'm trading on a personal account that I can hold trades a little bit longer without being penalized by potential drawdown violations like a funded account, is what I'll do. I'll look at my 4-hour internal, right? So you can see the 4-hour blacked out area that happens right here. Once this level lets go, ideally what we're looking to do is trade this from this region down here, this higher time frame demand, which you can kind of see off of this black 4-hour level all the way across, right? So once we tap in, we get the order flow realignment that happens right across here. We're going to essentially trade this long off of the sweep and push this into expectational order flow highs to take out our swing structure. That's the theory. Beyond that, we can actually look to target maybe another supply zone that happens up here and target the next 4-hour supply beyond structure, depending on how long you'd like to hold your trades. But yeah, the theory is that we always want to trade this into our weak level, which would essentially be this expectational order flow high. And the reason we know that this level, or we can assume that this level would be weak, is based on the fact that we've seen a 4-hour order flow shift, a realignment on the 15, and basically 4-hour order flow realignment, 15-minute realignment after the 4-hour realignment. So we get that double confirmation entry that happens within here. This is called the market fractal that pushes us into expectational order flow highs that essentially takes out the swing high. Furthermore, what I want to just kind of talk about is this next example up here. This comes from sort of like a higher time frame flip zone. You can see exactly where the most recent high was. There's going to be supply on a lower time frame that rests in these levels. We get an interaction between the high that pushes us down to push us back through. The last point of demand that remains unmitigated in terms of higher time frame is up in this region. You can see that the mitigation process happens here. It happens across like this. We push up, come back, push through, and the next level that we could potentially jump into would be in this region right here. So this is all having to do with bullish higher time frame order flow. You can see the demand level, demand level, demand level, demand level, which creates a demand chain on the higher time frame. And you can also sync this up with lower time frame confirmations to be able to blast out of these regions and take out these EOF levels. So the next portion of this video series would be looking to trade counter trend against 4-hour. Now, although it's not advised to trade counter trend, it can be very, very lucrative if and when you align yourself properly with the market. So typically what we like to see is some form of a higher time frame supply that gets interacted with. we start pushing down, we want to see an order flow shift that happens on the initial demand failure at internal swing structure, which is right at this level right here. So once this level essentially gets broken through, it usually creates an interaction between demand not being able to overrule this supply. I typically don't like to take these first ones, especially when we're trading counter trend. Ideally, you would like to see a double confirmation that happens in these regions, especially counter trend. Now, obviously, it's advised to do this anywhere in the market. You can get away with a lot more leniency when it comes to trading pro trend alongside with the higher time frame. But yeah, like I said, ideally, my first setup would happen at the demand failure that happens right here. Once that demand does fail, we have produced supply, and ultimately we can take supply into the potential weak areas, right? Or take this down into the halfway point of this leg, which kind of sits down in here in the discount of the leg. There's a number of different ways that we can profit take with this, but I'm just trying to show you examples of how to utilize bearish order flow, and that's usually on a supply chain that gets formed, and then we essentially see a supply chain get formed here, supply chain get formed here, and all the way through this until essentially we get this higher time frame supply level that sits right here at an internal structure point that gets broken, which would prove that 4-hour demand is likely to take back control, provided we see lower time frame confirmations in this level, which is just again a market fractal of the lower time frame doing exactly what the higher time frame has already done to confirm that this high as well as this high should be weak in terms of our profit taking strategy. So just to sum this up, bearish order flow gets confirmed on the initial demand failure on the mitigation. Once we mitigate and fail to take out a reasonable level of 15-minute structure, as well as breaking down this substructure point right here, this confirms that this high and essentially should be strong. We can assume that we can start looking for bearish order flow to kick in at these levels, which would create a supply chain all the way down into the higher time frame zone. Once we reach the higher time frame zone, we don't necessarily want to be looking for shorts this deep in price. We'd essentially want to see some sort of a failure in supply on the higher time frame to be able to ensure that we are in fact switching back to the bullish order flow that's intended for the market.